You probably have 100 heroes. You may end up finding yourself having 100 heroes, just like what's being promised for a using 100 heroes. But in reality, even if you have the promise of 100 heroes, and they all play entirely differently, it's going to be a completely different kind of game than what SINoALICE is. It may be the closest thing that we get, right? But it's definitely more than likely not to be the thing that we're looking for still. So this game that we mentioned, that was a game from the past, and it was basically a Final Fantasy but online. What happened to it? It closed, apparently not that far after it launched in the first place, or it didn't manage to live for that many years, according to our very limited research. We weren't able to find all that much material online, and then we went to find out what happened with I think there were like 2, 3 at most throughout all the dates, so there weren't even all that many games in that particular playstyle. So yeah, out of the 2 or 3 games that existed way back then, I'm talking about online games, of course. There were a lot of Final Fantasy-ish kind of games. I'm not even calling them Final Fantasy clone because I'm not even sure who came first, or which one was done first, or if they even had Final Fantasy as an inspiration. But let's say Final Fantasy-ish kind of games, or Final Fantasy-esque kind of games. Anyways, there were a lot, but they were obviously not online, so that's the problem. If they're not online, you may have a wonderful game with a lot of characters. They may very well be played very differently from one another, but you end up with the same situation as, say, Mario Party. Super Mario RPG. You have a good game, you have a really wonderful experience, but it still feels very limited. You know, the game is going to be wonderful, you can still roam around the land, make it a little open world and whatnot, but there's not going to be that fashion design thing that we're talking about, right? It's just not going to be there. It's going to probably going to have a lot of things, but chances are multiple attires is not going to be one of them. And if that fails to be there, then basically we are left with that particular void of the thing that we're looking for, right? So that's really unfortunate. And chances are we're not going to be able to find anything in the single player department that meets that criteria, which is basically a fashion show. I haven't heard of a single player game that can be categorized as a fashion show kind of game. If it isn't, of course, a fashion game, like a fighting game or an MMO, or well, not MMO, but one other genre that is not a fighting game, using the same mechanics rather than gimmicks, but you can call them gimmicks, that are being used on MMOs, is it? It's likely, on MMOs, or rather, on MMOs, it's rather unlikely to be found, or fashion games, kind of thing. It's very unlikely to be had, and there's a lot of potential for some of these games. That game in particular I'm not entirely sure. Maybe it wasn't that game, but I think we saw that on another homebrew. Well, some of these games have like the possibility to have models injected, so you could potentially expand the game to the infinity. For example, I think Mu has the possibility for you to do your own attires. Now, of course, that's not entirely accurate. What I'm trying to say is that you are potentially able to do so if you have the right tools, the right versions, the right place, and the right time, those kind of things, which is very unlikely. Anyways, I'm not even 100% sure that you can do it. I actually think that a place where you may be able to do so is on Dungeon Fighter Online, but don't quote me on that. We haven't even been able to run Dungeon Fighter Online to begin, so we have absolutely zero clue as to how that works. But anyways, this particular game that we found that was like Final Fantasy-esque, the Battle Line, apparently even had the option, or when the offline, was it? What is wrong with the game? Now there's like a lot of problems. Now everything is failing now. We're not even able to get a decent connection. See, it's all breaking down. Why is it doing this? Because we had absolutely no issues moments ago, so it doesn't make sense that the game is deciding now that it wants to sabotage the last minutes. Yeah, it's kind of dumb. I'm not even sure if that's what's happening, but I'm uncertain as to what actually may be happening, so your guess is as good as mine. We were able to play throughout these almost 11 hours without as much of a hiccup, and now we are unable to even run a burst without having a really troublesome connectivity issue. So it may be on our end, but that's kind of odd still. That's really unusual. Anyway, okay, so going back to where we were, that game apparently has the stuff that we need, right? The only problem is that we couldn't find it. The game exists. The game was there on the Rage song, which is the place that we used to get our MMO alternatives or private server information. And it seems the game files were there at one point, and there was somewhat of a community working on that and doing that, but that was long ago disappeared. That disappeared long ago. So unfortunately, we couldn't find any further information on how to make ourselves that particular game server, a server for that particular game. And that's it. That's the closest thing to a SINoALICE replacement that we could find. Why? Because it's online. It probably had a good couple of fashions, right? I don't think that there is. Well, there may be. Some of them are not focused on them, but I doubt there are many online games that basically don't have a fashion department, right? All of those games require probably to have that kind of content injected, because it's not just about the numbers. There's just so much that you can do with numbers, right? You can obviously do more powerful weapons and sell them, and that could eventually give you some money. But the reality is that it is more likely that you end up doing fashion alternatives that don't require a rebalance of the game and that are not going to have your population further spread it out into different sectors and tiers, basically. So what's happening with the game? What's happening with the game? So yes, you are likely to find on online games this kind of content, the cosmetics, right? And what's the point about making cosmetics in single player games? People seem to not be interested in them, and companies can rarely, if ever, charge more for them. They of course can charge as in a DLC, but those are fairly piratable. So I'm not sure if that is deterring companies from delving into that possibility, or if it is in the end just a matter of, well, you know what, the audience, the target audience is not even going to be bothered by it. If the target audience for these particular games, the MMO games, rarely ever cares about the cosmetics, except on certain games like, let's say, Mabinogi, and even then people don't seem to care all that much about actual fashion cosmetics, or what would that be called, interaction between shapes, forms, colors, you know, having a set of attires that actually, well, look good. Of course people do that too, but I feel that at times I feel that it's mostly a competition on who has the money to buy the most expensive attires. So if you see someone, or rather people are not going to be trying out on the cheaper attires. I didn't get to see much of that, you know, like fashioning cheaper attires. The fashioning is done on the expensive attires, right? So, and that's one of the games that actually are focused towards that department, you know, being similar to SINoALICE, but instead of having 4,000 weapons, it has over 4,000 attires. So in the end, it's still highly. It highly allows to have variety, a lot of variety in fashion preferences, right? That's really good. But that's one game, and one that is geared towards that. But certainly you can find cosmetics in many other games, in a lot of games. But mostly those are, as mentioned, online games. I'm not even certain that I can find an example on an offline game or a single player game that has a wide selection of attires, let alone having 4,000 attires. And chances are there is never going to be a single player game like Mabinogi in this example that has 4,000 attires, because beyond not being the scope of the game, and probably not the target audience, and most importantly, I feel that if a company takes the time to do 4,000 attires for a game, say a game that is not a fashion game, they are going to first take a lot of time and energy, and second, not going to be able to charge extra for having those 4,000 attires. Well, if you just get a game like that with 10 attires, you are bound to charge the same amount. So it's impossible. It's rather unlikely. It's like I don't know, jumping out the window and flying. There is like 99.99999% of a chance, according to the knowledge that we have, that if you jump out the window, you're not going to fly, right? Probably if you do it with like some equipment and stuff, but out of the blue, just because you do that, there is like a really low chance for that to happen, or at least that's what we think, right? Maybe someone does it, it disappears from sight and actually flies, but can't tell anybody or something like that, who knows. But that's beyond importance. What really is important is that even though it is possible, at the very least, as far as my knowledge goes, at this particular moment, it hasn't been done. So chances are there is not going to be a game being developed with 4,000 attires in mind, or rather 4,000 weapons in mind, 4,000 weapon models, because it doesn't need to be 4,000 different weapons. This game actually only has 8 categories of weapons divided into 2 different types of characters or archetypes. So even if you have 14 characters or a little more than that, not including collaborations, you're still going to have only 2 types of characters, the bangers and the rear guards, and that's a wonderful way to organize it. Even though I find that to be somewhat restricted, because, and that's about as open-ended as it can be. But the next thing that can be more open-ended than that could be like Mabinogi, and even then you have races there. You have 3 races, so basically you have a human, elves, and giants. So sometimes things are not even being able to be used by anybody. You know, it does have its own set of restrictions. But some other games are definitely more restricted. Okay, are we going to be able to play this or not? So yeah, you are facing that particular situation where you are not going to be able to find that thing on anything other than an MMO or an online game, right? Because there's just no way to charge for it. That would be nice, right? I guess, why isn't the DLC model being used more? I feel it may be because of what we mentioned, the what's the name again? The piracy. That may be influencing it, because it's definitely easier to just download the DLCs illegally than to do some kind of cheating in an online game. So once again, probably anybody who has that mindset is going to go for developing it instead on an MMO rather than on an online game, rather than a single player game. But if you ask me, there is still a chance. There's still I don't know. Okay, so I have no numbers on this, but I'm going to state a couple of sentences that I think are true. Okay, the first statement is that the DLCs exist on single-player games. The second statement is that some people buy them. The third statement is that some people piracy, some people get them through piracy. Okay, that's not even a possibility. That's probably a reality rather than a possibility. But that other statement that I just said, some people buy it. And this is where I obviously have no information, but what's more like, oh, is it over? It is over. What does it say there? There is a 26th December the 26th, and 12 o'clock till 17 o'clock, 5 p.m., 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. But I don't know what that is about. I doubt it is the possibility of giving out more time. Oh my gosh, we couldn't play with Pinocchio. The king had to take the sacrifice, but that's what kings are about, I guess. At least we managed to play him once. I don't think we got the two of them. We weren't able to go back either to Red Riding Hood. And we also made plans that we were unable to follow with another group that we couldn't play as. I think this is the end. Too bad we missed out on an hour there. We could have done an extra hour, but we were unable to be there at the right time. But I think we did. We did a lot. I feel we did a lot. Why isn't there any videos being posted on YouTube now? If you ask me, I think this is the right time for the SINoALICE channel to say at the very least one last word. Well, Square Enix did post something about Octopath Traveler, champions of the whatever. Well, Octopath Traveler is another alternative, right? It's done by Square Enix. It should have a lot of stuff. And apparently you can recruit like anybody in the world to join your team, and there's bound to have a lot of weapons too. So, well, yeah, okay. Not that excited at all. I think it looks good. It's probably good. But for me it's not SINoALICE. It obviously has like better graphics going for it and things like that. But is that really that important? I don't know. It's so not important that it actually is detrimental to us, so as it breaks our gameplay, because we're not able to play it because we don't have enough requirements, enough power to be able to run it, unfortunately. So yeah, that's actually for the worse. But anyways, it looks like an okay kind of game to try out. Some people are praised it as being the best thing that has ever happened to RPG since Final Fantasy or something like that. But for me, I don't know. I'm not seeing it. I don't care that much about the stories, right? Okay, I don't know. I think SINoALICE just made it perfectly, because the stories were there, but they weren't determinative. Like all of these single player games, you can only follow the story, right? You can eventually potentially unlock many basically hunting areas, and you could go around on them and play, and basically just do out of that whatever you want, right? So have it a little open-ended, but that's about the end of it. Well, here in SINoALICE it was, because now we have to talk everything in past, it was a little more restricted, because there weren't that many verses, you were dependent on a monthly updates, or rather monthly new verses that only lasted for a very small amount of time, right? Basically events, but that could have potentially been expansions rather than just a one-shot kind of situation, right? But all of those stories were disjointed for the most part, and you could just go around your way without paying that much attention to them. Right? You can still do that in many games, but for example, just to name an example, I recently played a little bit of Yakuza 0, and I felt, at the very beginning, I felt so driven out to fulfill a little bit of the story, because I felt it was like imperatively important that I just had to push forward on that, to the point that I didn't even know how to save the game. And at one point I was like, oh well, I'm exhausted now, I need to rest, but I haven't been able to save, and now I'm in a zone that I feel like I know how to save, but I'm in a zone that I can't save, yet it's either pushing forward until we end, or losing all the progress we have made. So we had to finish the first chapter. That way, that made us finish the first chapter of the game a little bit by force. But if you haven't played, you should, because the game is really good. But you will probably notice what we are trying to say. What I'm trying to say with that the moment you start playing it, you start feeling a little anxious on the fact that you need to do it. Well, yeah, basically, without trying to ruin much of the experience, you're kind of being chased. So for me at the very least, I felt that if I didn't do a specific set of activities, that I wasn't going to be able to roam the free world, or roam the world freely, because I felt that I may be chased. I don't know. It may be just me, but I felt that particular sensation and couldn't immediately jump into the open world kind of aspect of it. Well, instead of a game like SINoALICE, you have a bunch of verses, disjointed verses. You can just start on whichever one you could just have started on whichever one you have wanted. But the problem being that, as I mentioned earlier, you have that situation where you had to either raise your stats to be able to be significant, or to participate in later content, especially content that was later released regarding the main storyline. And you weren't able to access it as easily as you did with the earlier content, which is the one that I feel was the best, or deserved the most praise. So if you ask me, I would have done things rather differently, but also, as I mentioned, the way that I think is very different, in my opinion, or at least from my experiences, to the way I have found other people think. So, as other people would like to just get the content done, and if something is released, they want to be the first one to clear it, and after that, they just abandon it, basically. Then it kind of makes a little bit of sense that the developers make their content harder to be accessed, kind of thing. Because after people end the content, they are going to say, rather than, oh, that was good, I want to play it again, what gets mostly said is probably something around the lines of, oh, that was way too easy, when are you doing something else, something more? I want more because I finished what you just gave me, and gluttony tells me that I want more. And it better be good, it better not be bad, because this one was bad or wasn't bad, it's indifferent. But I always want more and better. It has to not only be good, it has to be better than the previous one. Thus forcing and pushing. Well, it pushes and forces improvement and evolution, but at the same time, it forces and pushes exhaustion and decomposition and stuff like that, I guess. So when these developers probably started thinking, oh, you know what, we just can't outdo ourselves or do something more wacky than what we have already done. Most of it is also due to pressure from the player base, I guess. But without it, you wouldn't have a bunch of wonders in the world, like pyramids, which we talked about earlier today too. Pyramid scheme, Ponzi scheme, which drove a bunch of people to their death, but hey, the pyramids are there, so what was better? Probably people are going to say, well, the pyramids are a work of art or something like that, but if they had been the ones being tortured to create the pyramids, maybe they would have somewhat different approach to the subject. Maybe not, I don't know. Anyways, I'm getting off rail with this digression. I wanted to talk a little bit more about that situation then, which is, well, we couldn't find that on that game, and basically we haven't been able to find any other similar games. We have a couple that are still on the list to be tried, as we have seen them being mentioned for having multiple characters. I'm completely uncertain on the situation of the multiple weapons. That's really bad in and on itself, because we investigated a little bit and we're only able to find some information regarding I guess a couple of RPG Maker games that had 100 weapons at most. It felt like that was it. We have a game on the waiting list there that allows you to, because the game is basically done on RPG Maker and not packaged or overly protected. You're able to change some of the sprites and things, but I'm not certain if you're able to inject more content, and the game mechanics are somewhat difficult. It does allow for a little bit of modifications, making it to your own needs, but the game still felt slightly what's the word I'm looking for? Simplistic, bare boned. I'm not sure. We didn't get far in it, anyways. We didn't see that much further ahead. But with what little we managed to investigate on the game, it's not even that big of a game, but what little we managed to investigate on the game, it looked fairly simplistic, so it's okay. It looks like the game is going to be playable and still rather fun. It actually even has like if memory serves me right, I think it even has an auto combat, but I don't recall it being that awesome. Anyways, I'm not sure if it also only focuses on a single character when they're attacking, or that auto combat, which would make it really bad. It would make it really anti-auto combat, in my opinion. Would be okay. It would be like very efficient for the people that like that kind of thing. Which I'm not even criticizing it all that much. I do recall playing those games that exact same way. We focus our attacks on a single enemy, usually the weakest one, and we thought, oh, we are so cool, we are so knowledgeable, we are so good at mathematics. But the reality is that looked really stupid and bad and only served to finish the game fast. We managed to at times finish the games, and we thought we were awesome for it. Kind of, but mostly not. I feel that nowadays the fact that we are able to find entertainment in actually doing the opposite of finishing the game is testament to something better, something worse, I don't know. But for us it's okay. Hopefully we can get to share that vision with others. Well, anyways, this has been SINoALICE that we have been playing. It was a good run. It was a good era. Did we run out of? We ran out of. How did we run out of? How did we run out of space again? What is it with this game? This game is just like a vacuum for space, yeah, for empty megabytes. I'm going to be playing some. I don't even want to, but I think I'd rather have some background music being played as we talk a while and finish our stream. Actually, I think why not finish the stream and then go into just chatting or something like that, right? I don't know. What is it with this? Why did it load out so much? Well, actually, they all bloated out, but I recall a couple of minutes ago seeing around 800 megabytes of free space. Whatever happened to those 400 megabytes? I'm betting this 141, that's probably the one that was broken. None of them are like extremely heavy, but what's with this 97? Oh, this is the base. Could we, without much concerns, delete the base? Or actually that... Well, we never updated this base though. What should we delete? We don't have any way to actually check anything else. Should we even be checking anything else? Well, you know what? I'm going to check We still have our Alkaline collecting daily. We're opening the Alkaline to further increase our stats. Okay, so you know what we should do? I think I want to continue talking, but why would we pollute our SINoALICE ending, I guess? Yeah, we're receiving the same message on the Alkaline. No, actually, we're receiving some crazy message there. I'm not even sure what that message says. It's not exactly the same. It's just a message there on the middle of the screen. Let me see what it says. Oh no, this is not good. I just made a mess here. I used the wrong zoom-in utility on the other computer because we triggered it the same way as we do it on this computer, and we just made a really bad mistake. But okay, it can be more or less read. Ew. Okay, it says something like today yo many today yo many na she again she something notame se hushitoni ko Nina Io Un. I I'm not sure. I'm reading this terribly. Ko something, so something, Ota, or is it Oda? Oda Kehio. Something. Higoku. Or something. Kudasai. Probably. I'm not sure that says kudasai, but that's a word. That's probably the only actual word we got, right? Kudasai. But I don't think it says Dasuke kudasai, which is like the only expression we have heard, and I'm not even sure what exactly it meant. And we just clicked on it and it kept going, so I'm not even sure if that... Hold on a second, is this game still going? It shouldn't, right? Well, you know how we're going to find out. We just need to click something else and it should technically kick us to the main... Okay, another message here. It says, we closed the zoom in and we have to open it again. Something around the lines of something. Shipan, Shio, Hyongda, or Uyote, or Su, I think it's Su, Yosu, Passion, and passion, pushi de kudasai. Again with the kudasai. That's about it. And it's obviously very poorly read, and we are being kicked to Google Play Store. And it says this item is not available in your country. But I can almost be certain that, well, it is all blacked out, so that's not bad. You don't have to be like a genius to know what's happening there. Right? I guess, or rather, I kind of suppose. But still, I don't know what even we're trying to find here. I'm obviously just beating around the bush, or beating around the dead horse. Yeah, kind of. That's an expression that gets used for something else, but in this particular, I think it applies as well. Beating around the dead horse, seeing if it stands up again, but quite certain we know the answer to that. Anyways, we, as mentioned, should already close our SINoALICE stream. Thank you once again very much for joining in on us on this particular wonderful journey. It has been quite a really fun game. I know that's not saying much, but that's not saying anything, but I guess it doesn't matter what we say. I feel it mostly matters what we do, or what we did. It mostly matters what we did, and you can see what we did on our video on demand section. We are also hoping that we are able to back up these videos that we just recorded, these 3 last videos. Hopefully nothing bad happens and we're able to do so. Actually, we should even do it like right now. We could do that exactly right away. Right? Oh, yeah, I guess. Maybe not. I'm feeling kind of ill already. I'd rather just rest a little bit. I feel like I need a little bit of resting. But we will hopefully back up these videos as soon as possible, and you are very much welcome to watch all of our other video on demand section. We have been able to back up a couple of SINoALICE videos in the past, so hopefully there is a couple of things, fun things there to be found. So be sure to check them out, and may you find something enjoyable in them, the same way that we throughout these years. Although I couldn't say we have been playing SINoALICE for years, we actually only were able to play SINoALICE for... Well, we have some recordings from last year Christmas event, and I feel that's when we started to actually be able to fully play SINoALICE. So out of the 5 years that the game has been live, we have only unfortunately been able to consistently play a single year. And even in that year we played a lot of Mabinogi 2 and a lot of other games, so we weren't even like totally in the game, in the SINoALICE experience, yet we tried to participate somewhat of a lot, or a considerable amount, as we were able to, as we found the ability to, though that ended up being not enough, unfortunately, or rather, yeah, it could have been more. It definitely would have been nice if it could have been more, because there was like a lot to be done in this game. But for better or worse, we received the experience necessary to, at least from our perspective, understand how to do things right on the go. So it wasn't something that we knew what to do the very first moment we started. It was something that was progressively done, in our opinion, better. And you are, as mentioned, welcome to see some of the videos, but don't expect to find good material throughout the whole recordings. But there are still good things to be found, right? So yeah, it is a rather sad occurrence that is happening. But fortunately, we, at the very least, have the memories, right? So even if the videos get taken down, for as long as we remember how wonderful this game was, still worth it. There's still something to be had, I guess. And that reminds me of all of those games that I was mentioning have been closed throughout the many dates. All of the end of service notices that we have lived through of so many wonderful games, but that we couldn't have any recordings of. So I think I would like to take a couple of seconds here and just name them, because since we didn't ever get any recordings for them, we don't have material to even remember them by. But mentioning them a little bit right now, it's something. It's a little bit of something, I guess. So let me see which ones I can remember, and thank you once again for joining on us as we basically are doing a just chatting session here. But let me just mention them as fast as I possibly can, and for the games that I can manage to remember. Okay, so I believe the first game that we saw having an end of service notice was a mobile game that was super fun. It was like it had city building elements, more or less like you can find on Travian. So you build your a couple of buildings there, and you increase their stats. There wasn't that much to it, but it still was there, and it was rather fun. And you went into battles with other castles, and you had like a bunch of cards. I think it was like cards, and cards represented your troops, and the troops were really fun. They were really fun. They were. I remember seeing Koropokuru, one of the first representations that I have seen of a Koropokuru, and it was there. It was really nice, man. I really liked that game, and I wasn't able to play it for more than a couple of days even. But it was really wonderful, and out of nowhere it disappeared. Okay, that was fairly recent, and I just remember that the actual first game that I recall seeing an end of notice, or rather not, but the first game, okay, it is one game that we still play, but it turns out that the version that we first played way back when I was in high school, that one closed down. But we played it when we were in high school, and then we didn't play it for so many years. We started playing it back in university many years later, and we found another game, but we didn't know it wasn't the same game. It was later that we found out that it was a version done or from the wiki, basically, which is kind of what we are possibly aiming with SINoALICE, but we hope we don't have to go through that because we don't want to. Basically, it's not something that we want to do. We want to play the game. We don't want to go through a wiki digging. Wiki spidering to be able to do a product, which we actually did with that game, because even though the game exists nowadays and we have played it on live on stream too, it's called Archmage, or it was called Archmage, and now it's called wait a second, yeah, it was called Archmage and now it's called Reincarnation. Yes, but it was also called The Lord in another portal that did it. It's a web-based text web-based text web browser-based game. You can find some of the footage for it on our older videos as well. But we weren't able to play it all that much because the game has every couple of days reset kind of thing, and still it's fun in short bursts, and it's difficult to give that much excitement to a text-based game if you're not the one playing it. So we re-envision it a little bit, but it requires a lot of storytelling abilities, right? So we sometimes do it, but it's not we wouldn't play it. It's actually our sixth favorite game, but it shares the position with, I'm not sure if it's number 6, but SINoALICE is definitely there in the first 5. Although, if I could tell you that all of these games that have close are maybe not my favorite, but very close to being on that list, I hope it doesn't sound frivolous, but definitely these online games have that thing. Usually they have like specific elements that are not found elsewhere. Many of them, the game experience has been wonderful, so it's so sad that all of them end up closing. Okay, so where were we? Yes, that Archmage then was Rendition, and we were planning on digging the wiki and trying to do our own version, but it, at least as of this particular moment, has not materialized. Yet the game still exists, but the online version is just plain bad. Basically, you're not even allowed to do multi-mage legally, so we end up, as usual, just doing it anyways, but feeling that it's dumb that you're not allowed to do it by default. And what's sad, well, not the most sad, but because saddest, well, because it's the same, but that we haven't found anybody playing the same way that we like to play and the same way with our philosophy, and everybody is just trying to go to the first spot on the list and blah blah. Same thing as usual, right? So it's kind of redundant to go around it again. But yeah, that was the first game that we found out or that we had gone through end of service notice, even though we didn't know it, because as mentioned, we went back and found another game that was exactly the same game, even though it looked differently. I do recall that. I do recall the first time entering the game saying, this game does look very different. I wonder why. And it was because it wasn't the same game. But anyways, the game's still very much the same game, so I'm not even sure if it counts as much as an end of service notice as the other one. But the other one that we mentioned, the one that was like city building with cards, that was a real end of service notice, and it was so bad that we couldn't even remember the name. Okay, so that was the first game. Then came another one which is super wonderful, another game that we have been unable to find a replacement for, even after finding a very similar game that, well, that's another story. That game was called oh wow, can you imagine that? That's why I'm trying to mention the names, so that eventually if I forget them, there's something there still. But it was called something like Dance. No, not Dance. It was the thing is that the game existed, and then one day they did like a really big update which included the sword dancers, and that's why they had like dance on the title, but it wasn't like a title but rather like a subtitle. It's complicated, but the game's name I cannot recall either. It was something like, did it have sword on the name? I don't recall. Sword Masters? Not even. I'm terribly sure that's not the game. That's not even close. Sword Masters, Dance Masters, Dance. I cannot for the life of me remember, and I recall knowing that name, mentioning, and I can definitely recall mentioning that name not even that long ago. Well, anyways, you had a squad and the squad fights, and it's very similar to that cookie run game, except that it was in from left to right rather than from diagonally lower left to upper right. But that's the closest one, and we haven't been able to play cookie run either. But instead, we managed to play a game that was called, or is called, how is it called? It's called something like TTYX, or that's the name of the folder that we have. It's all full Chinese, super complicated, and I can't for the life of me either remember the name of the game. It is on Rage Zone, but it had a big problem, which is that, okay, you can do your own private server, but it does still make a connection to the Chinese website, to a Chinese website called 4399 and or 4399. I don't know how to pronounce that one, and you need to have an account with them. And since you can't, because that's Chinese kind of, it has Chinese requirements in terms of documents, you need to do a QQ account, which can be done, but then for some reason I wasn't able to log in back into the game, so we wasn't able to log back into the account either. So we started talking to some Chinese Chinese support service that in the end were trying to help us, but we couldn't find a solution. So what was it? We needed to I think we needed to use what's the name of those? A QR code, and we were unable to do it because we didn't have a phone back then. Now we have the phone, but haven't had the time. So we don't know if the game still exists. That could end up potentially being another end of service that we have not even found out about. But anyways, the game uses a bunch of League of Legends characters, which is even closer. LOL Truyen Kai, that's the name. LOL, as in League of Legends, Truyen Kai, which is probably not even Chinese, but sounds more like Vietnamese or something like that. But I think that's the way you can find it, or rather, that's the name of the package. But I'm not sure how to find it on Rage Zone either. Well, if you want to find it, just search for posts that TALEX9 have written, and chances are you will find a post that I made a question on that particular sub-post, or a sub-post that I made on that particular post. A question that I made on that particular post, but the post is rather abandoned. Last time someone wrote was to say that the game had been taken down, or that there wasn't any answer because the person that was hosting it asked to be contacted first, which is kind of detrimental to the product. And I have been wanting to upload it and reshare it, see if anybody can get around that 4,399 restriction, but I haven't been able to do so because I feel I should probably first send a message to that original poster and see if it's okay, or I don't know. Anyways, I haven't done it just yet. Still, so many years have passed that maybe even doing so isn't, or shouldn't be considered an offense in any way. It's public domain by now. Anyways, that's that particular game, which it's similar to. I felt I almost had the name on the top. Dungeon Masters. No, not even. Dungeon Rankers is another thing. So yeah, it's very similar to that game. You have your army, and it goes from left to right, and they basically just run into each other and attack the first one that they find. It is super fun for me. At the very least, it was super fun for me. But this one is all based on League of Legends characters, and they sometimes use abilities, and when they recharge, you can use one specific ability on each of them. That's basically the game. And but the early stages are, as usual, more fun for me. Well, anyways, there are actually a bunch of characters, so the game doesn't have that problem. But there isn't any itemization, which was present in the other game. It was one of the first games that we actually got our team balanced, because you received your very early sword fighter, which ended up being like really weak in comparison to later sword fighters that you also gacha, and you also receive weapons. So if you pair a really strong character with a really strong weapon, you were able to do really tough content, which we started doing at first. And then one day we started thinking, what if we pair one of the weakest characters to one of the strongest weapons? And that may have been the beginning of it all, because we have been using that, more or less that same mechanic whenever we were able to. So it ended up being exactly what we wanted to, or even more than we have ever hoped or expected for, because we were then able to further expand on our roster, being able to use these weaker characters in scenarios, and also having them having them with the possibility to participate with stronger characters. So it opened up a whole new world basically for gameplay for us, and well, it was in and on itself rather fun. Like mentioned, it sounds as it may be rather what's the name? Rather simplistic. But the craziest thing is that cookie cutter, cookie. What was it again? Cookie run? Yes, cookie run. Cookie run game was. That cookie run game is still probably running and is somewhat more famous, and it's exactly the same game basically. Okay, so the company that released the game is called Vicor or Vicor, and I'm trying to find the name of that game, but I'm unable to. I just remember Elgar. No, that's not it. Ecor is preparing to reopen Elgar. They said it will be serviced again after 7-10 days. And RNTS mobile business closed. But that's not the name of that game. It wasn't any Elgard. Picor attracts 5 billion Korean won in investment. Wow, that sounds like a lot. Let's see, maybe they say over here what's the name of that game. All game on support, Demon Hunter. Was it Demon Hunter? It could have been Demon Hunt. No, it's not Demon Hunt. Quite sure it's not Demon Hunter, The Return of the Wings. Summon Masters, that's the one. Summon Masters was the name of that game. It was such a wonderful game. I honestly doubt anything is being done for this game, but it's worth checking the Google search bar for, at the very least, something, but nah. Mobile game Summon Masters gameplay walkthrough from 2014. So this was done way back then. That's really crazy to think that this thing that we did with SINoALICE more or less was being done there. But back then we didn't even think about recording or anything of the like, and nowadays that's just what remains. Couple of videos of the game, wow, but it was such a wonderful game, and sadly nobody probably played it like us as per usual, so forget about seeing that really basic character with a really strong weapon. And it doesn't say anything about reopening as that other Elgard game mentioned. Seems that's the company. I don't know. It was called Vicor. I'm not sure, or Vicor. I'm not sure if they're still doing anything or closed down. But I'm not seeing any information on this game that could potentially be of any usage. Well, anyways, if you get to see some of the videos, I recommend them because it's a really fun game. It was a really fun game. Summon Masters. I'm reading a web page and information about the 4,000, 40,000, 5 billion Korean won. But that's from 2011, so yeah, they don't even have images for that game. And I do wonder if any of these other games were done, or Record of Arden War. I don't recall any of that. But I didn't find any I didn't search for any information on any other games from that company. If I recall correctly, Empire War, I thought that was the other game. How do we even reach Summon Masters? It makes me wonder if it was because the other game that we just mentioned was on by Picor, but I don't think so. We may just have found it on Google Play Store instead. Another game that faced end of service notice that we played was one called Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah, that's a little more easy to remember. It was like the official Dungeons and Dragons game for mobile, and it was such a crazy game because you had a couple of characters, and you had turns, but the way you played was like a sort of a pinball machine. So you basically on your turn you slingshotted your characters across a room that you were seeing from the top-down view, and they just like collided against other characters, or they could just like bounce into a wall and then by means of physics just attack or crash against another enemy. It was a really weird game. I don't remember all that much about that one either, other than the fact that it was the official Dungeons and Dragons game, or I think it was Dungeons and Dragons. It was one of those big franchises. I don't think it was Neverwinter for mobile. I'm quite sure it was Dungeons and Dragons for mobile. And it also faced down end of service, which was rather uncommon because we thought, but this is such a big intellectual property, how the heck did they close this? Okay, yet another game that we faced end of service notice. Then there was this other game that we were playing on mobile called I don't remember the name of that other one. It was done by Come To Us, which is a rather big company. Let's see. Oh, that's going to be rather more difficult to find because of it being a much larger company. Come To Us, and the name of the game, I'm going to try to find it. Basically, the type of game was that you had a knight, and that knight did endless running kind of gameplay. Try to get from one end to the other end, from left to right, and attack or defend it against anything on its side, on its way. Knights and something, I think it was knights, and I'm going to start the search using that parameter, seeing if I can find anything. Okay, so what came, Knights and Squires was the name of the game. So what was so fun about this game is that you had your gacha of other characters other than your knight, and those were alongside the character. Yeah, that was the gacha aspect of it. Not exactly the most fun part. The most fun part came from the fact that you could do the game, you could play the game without without attacking. You could play the game by blocking. You could do the whole game only using your blocking ability, right? So it required for you to activate the block on the right moment if you were to do it, and that nobody played like that again, but if you did it, then the levels started becoming way more difficult, right? And it was very fun. It was a really fun game. Then I believe, now I just remember while reading some of these things, I believe we after that found another game which was run by Nexon actually, which was similar to this one. Nexon, let's see, mobile, Knights and Square. Let's begin with that. Let's see if we can get anything on that end. Knights and Squires. It closed down years ago, and in true Nexon fashion, it just out of nowhere. Conqueror's Blade. That doesn't sound right. Conqueror's Blade, that's not even close. That's another completely different thing. Conqueror's Blade. Cygnus Knight? No, that's Maple Story. I honestly cannot remember, but I do recall feeling happy because we found that game, which was going to be the replacement of the other, and then that one also closed. So I definitely need to get away from mobile games, online games. Next on mobile, end of service. What was the name of that game? Let's see, next on mobile, end of service, see what comes from then. Okay, so end of service benefits, is that even a thing? Terms of service, imagine that. Is Nexon still around? Arc Resona. It sounds slightly similar, but I don't think that was the name of the game. SINoALICE. SINoALICE comes in this list. That's sad. I can't find the name of that game, and I'm not even sure how to start looking for it. How do we look for that game? Nexon. I don't know. I don't want to make this, anyways, a deep searching kind of thing. I'm overly exhausted, and I just want to be able to mention them if I remember them to begin with. Anyways, there was that also, a Nexon game that was running. One day we found it, the next day they closed it. Or rather, a couple of, not that long of a time. I'm quite sure it was the replacement for that Knights and Squire, but I may be wrong, and it could have been, I'm quite sure, I kind of recall it being a replacement, right? I recall almost vividly thinking, oh, this game looks a lot like this other game, so it's going to be a replacement for it. But no, you know what? Now I remember. It wasn't a replacement for Knights and Square. It was a replacement for what was the name of the game? We just said it a couple of minutes ago. Summon Masters. Nexon Summon Masters. Similar. Let's see if we can find something around those lines. Yes, I remember. So you had your squad 2, and you just deploy them, and they encounter a game, another troop, and started fighting. And well, that for me is fun. It's actually what we're doing in SINoALICE, except that being one turn each and changing between characters. Between the characters they are attacking, they only focus on a single one. Once they met a character, it was a fight till the death, till someone died. I cannot find anything. Nexon, someone masters, Nexon, game similar to someone masters. Let's write the whole thing, see if we can find something. Let's see, King's Raid. No. Counterside, Swordcraft Story, no. Metal Masters, that was the one. Metal Masters. Wasn't it? It sounds like that was the one. That name immediately triggered something in me, so I'm quite sure that was the game. Metal Masters. Huh, doesn't it sound very similar to, was it Summon Masters? It was actually called Metal Masters? I cannot believe it. Wasn't it? Nexon Metal Masters. Quite sure, but it may be triggering memories from Summon Masters, so I'm not entirely sure. But let's just see if it was that one. Couple of images are bound to let me know if it was or not, but these images are definitely not very explicit, so I'm unable to recall if this was it or not. Although, alright, this is the one. Yes, I remember it vividly. We played some Metal Masters 2 end of service a couple of days after we started Nexon again. This one unfortunately didn't run with the fortune that some of the other Nexon games have, which are games that were adopted or something by a company called Balofi, and they managed to revive some of the games that Nexon had, but that's mostly for PC, which were Dragon Nest, we also started playing, end of service. Atlantica Online, also started playing, end of service. I wonder if we are like Bad Luck Omen or something like that. Anyways, those two were also closed down by end of service notice, but Balofer recovered them. Actually, it seems we may even still, at this point in the moment, be able to enter Atlantica Online, seeing as when the migration was done, it said something like, okay, log in into the game if you are planning to return to or continue playing or something like that, otherwise your accounts get deleted. We entered that one particular time, but didn't continue playing. I don't recall why. I feel we were already like somewhat devastated and didn't want to go through the whole thing of going through another, I don't know. Maybe we started playing another game. I know we started checking those games because we saw them on the same web page of the company that was doing Mabinogi, right? On the same launcher. So we thought, oh, okay, there are a couple of other games. Let's see what they are about. So maybe we just went back into Mabinogi and not decided to chase down all that, all the things that were required to be able to continue playing the game. Nevertheless, we actually have some files for Atlantica Online private server on a computer, though we have been unable to have them running. So they're there, but are they ever going to be there in fact? I don't know. Next up is like two of the biggest games. I'm not sure if I'm missing out on some. Those are the ones I recall. There may have been some others, but the next two followings are the most recent ones and two of the biggest hits that we have received too. The first one was done by the same company that did Lineage 2, and we didn't get to play it all that much either, but I don't recall. I think they also had they already didn't have audience when we entered, but also we just entered to get end of service notice. Okay, the company that does Lineage 2 is called NCSoft. End of service. Let's see if we can find it this way, because Metal Masters? No, Metal Masters is this one. What was it called? It wasn't like... Did it have the word Masters on it too? NCSoft lays off 20% of US operation before new game. And that's recent. That's the 3rd of February 2023. That's crazy. Tabula Rasa? No, we didn't play that one. Pet Devil Sold to Assault? No, that's not it either. Let's see. Closest Auto Assault MMO. That's not the one. There was another game done by Nexon that we wanted to play, but by the time we were going to try to, it was already end of service. So I don't think that's us. That's to be blamed on us. But who knows? What is with this NCSoft just Guild Wars this, Guild Wars that? City of Heroes? No, that wasn't it. But they did that too. We never got around to playing City of Heroes, so we don't know anything about it. But that apparently has its own, doesn't it? Its own private server situation. NCSoft, let's see. It was what kind of genre was it? It was like a Ragnarok, like Tree of Savior. That's an action RPG, ARPG, right? Multiple. Let's see, characters from multiple IPs. I remember it had Cat the Cat and which apparently is a Lineage 2 character, but I've never seen that fat cat. I think it's the one that you can summon, but I don't recall. So there was also this guy called Boomaru or something like that. 5 upcoming new IPs. I don't care about that. The Lively World, Conflictor, Masters. That was the one. M cross M. Masters, or Master, something like that. And see, I doubt if it's not being advertised on Rage Zone that there's something about it. I'm going to find out some information, see if there's anything around the area. That was one of the craziest or deranged end of services, because that was a game that portrayed characters from like all of the, or many of the intellectual properties that NCSoft has. So it was like a really big hit, isn't it? It was a MOBA, right? I couldn't think of that, of naming it like that. Is there anything new on this? There aren't dates. Why I've forgotten? Now unplayable MOBA, it still has a small something. Okay, I guess we can still read something around these lines. It was done on Vice. Vice had like really weird, quirky content, doesn't it? All of this is from 2017, but this is from 2020. I want to read a little bit of it, unless it's dumb, because Vice is sometimes dumb. Why I've forgotten, now unplayable MOBA still has a small, thriving community. Master only lived for 7 months. Its fans have spent years documenting its existence. Master was a few years late to the free-to-play mobile game when it came out in 2017, but it had a bottle full of previously unimaginable jaunty homemade sauce. The game made a splash onto the mobile scene due to its unorthodox approach to almost all of the genre conventions. Instead of a lobby system where you sit in a queue waiting, there was an entire hub world where you could walk around as an in-game avatar version of your favorite character, chat with other players, and groove out to some exclusive tunes on the player controller jukebox. We have some recordings for that, but not on any platform. We have them on our computer. It borrowed mechanics from tag team fighting games like Marvel vs. Capcom and the King of Fighters, letting players select 2 different characters for a match and tag them as needed. No more scrambling over who was playing the tank or support. You could just play both. It was a utopia of choice that meant over 700 options for players and over hundreds of thousands of possible combinations with each match. The new and evolving meta that came with that, along with the swift moment-to-moment pace of the matches, which were less than 25 minutes each, due to a countdown timer, gave the game a surreal quality. The gameplay was fun, fast, and flexible in a genre that felt stuck in its ways and afraid of big change. I never went around to being able to play the MOBA. I managed to only play the single player missions because the game was very heavy for my computer at that time, let alone for having the recording set up. All of its cool idiosyncrasies weren't enough to hold it afloat, though. Just 5 months after launch, when the game was in its MOBA infancy, NCSoft made a blog post announcing that they'd be shutting down the servers down within the next 2 months. And just like that, it was gone. Master full lifespan was a whooping 7 months. We truly believe that Master is special and offer a lot of new ideas to change up the MOBA genre. But in trying to carve out a niche for itself, we failed to connect with players. The goodbye post read, "We are as heartbroken as you are that we have to say goodbye to it." Failed to connect with players, for a stupid way of saying things. NCSoft then scrubbed the web clean of almost every mention of the game after closure. The main site and all of its information were removed, and the only real account that still lives is their YouTube channel. Clicking through their channel of character overviews and behind-the-scenes videos feels like walking through an abandoned theme park after dark. You're not supposed to be there, but why wouldn't you want to explore? Normally games that are shut down have some official records still up to date, like blog posts, updates, or social media. So it's odd that NCSoft will take such an extreme route to distance themselves from Master. They sunset the game, but it wasn't just turning off the servers. They practically erased it. In their farewell message, they credited the game's failure to not being able, quote-unquote, to connect with players, but that's just not true. In reality, the game did connect with fans, and somehow connected even deeper after its death. Today, over 2 years since the game closed, there is still an active community of Master fans out there. To them, the game never really died. They have been posted up in a couple of Discord servers and a subreddit with over 2,000 members. When I was playing the game, the lobby was empty. Reminiscent about an amazing MOBA that isn't available. What a bunch of hypocrites. Their community serves as a place to grieve and gush over Master. NCSoft tried to obliterate the game, but I thought it was going to say that I tried to obliterate the Discord server on the subreddit. But it lives on through the strong community that these players forge. It's a place of permanent nostalgia, fueled entirely on memories and the hope that they'll get another chance at playing the game. Master fans look at other notable multiplayer games that NCSoft unceremoniously sunset over years for hope, mainly the eccentric Wildstar and the superhero MMO City of Heroes games that went awry in their own way, but have maintained their dedicated community since closure. Wildstar fans don't have their game back, but they have each other. Ugh. Over 25,000 people on their subreddit drawing fan art, making videos, and looking for alternatives every week. In 2012, when City of Heroes fans heard that their game was planned to be shut down, they signed a petition with over 2,000 signatures, pleading for NCSoft to preserve their massive community. Paragon, the game's developers, also seem to be on their side. But the request got denied. Their fanbase continued to press on, though, finally getting their game back this past year through private server return to their original form. It's evident that these communities bounce back. Without an iota of help from NCSoft, they have managed to pick up the pieces of what they love and make something new for the people and by the people. What a stupid thing. The Master community has been doing everything they can to hold on to the wacky joy that was the game, and they're on a mission to keep that memory alive. I'm not that against the thing, but I know it's being sensationalist. The game still has an inescapable thrill that fans immortalize through talking, archiving, creating, organizing, and reminiscing about it. Two of the main players spearheading Master conservation and possible revitalization are Delta 47 and the group head archivist, and Malaki, the group's head organizer. Delta 47 spends a lot of his free time digging up things about Master that he feels like NCSoft wants people to forget. He unearthed lost prequel comics full of unseen in-game lore, found a bunch of the game's old concept art, and put it up for public viewing. And he's been learning how to code in case the game never comes back, and the community has to make their own version. He says he started archiving because the games he loved kept getting shut down and he was tired of it. Wow, games in plural, so I'm not the only one, I guess. I started archiving stuff because I hate where the industry is going, said Delta 47. Companies can't just say, hey, that game isn't profitable enough anymore, let's just pull the plug, when in reality there are still people out there who love that game. Malaki has been organizing the community since its inception, helping organize tournaments, creating places for pros to teach new players, and getting people talking about the game. He runs the main server and subreddit, spending his time trying to build a community large enough to attract NCSoft's attention, and hopefully get them their game back. We try to keep it afloat as best as we can, because if we don't, it just fades into oblivion, says Malaki. That's something we want to avoid. The motley crew of gamers chat all the time, share esoteric memes about the game's quirks, and have anniversary events and mock awards shows to keep the memory alive. Maybe someday Master will come back, and more people will be able to experience it for all of its exciting chaos, but that doesn't really matter. What really matters is that people still know it exists. NCSoft didn't care about the game at the end of the day, and that prompted the fans to care twice as hard. They still aren't able to log on, but they managed to chronicle, foster, and maintain a humble home for a game that almost vanished in front of their eyes. Well, it wasn't that bad. I guess it was worth the reading, but I doubt anything it's going to be attained, and this was from 2020, and I doubt anything is getting anywhere, but hopefully. Okay, so that was one of the biggest games. We didn't even get to play it all that much, but it was one of the first that we started to actually manage to record. So we have recordings of the game, right? After that came that was one of the most famous and well-loved games that got the end of service notice, and that was Mabinogi Duel, the Mabinogi card game, completely shut down. Another rather dumb decision, and that game had all of its assets, especially the images and the music. All the assets, or a lot of assets, were on the mobile, even when they were on your file system. And the next day, the day they decided to do the day that the game closed, they released an update, and I decided to install it because I was full of hopes and stuff, and it actually ended up deleting the assets that were on your mobile. That was the update. Like, really, that post, those things that were written on bytes make a lot of sense, right? Like, you're never entirely sure if these companies are like against the players in a way, but obviously they may be taking measures in order to actually make people do other stuff, like gather and do things like learn programming and stuff like that, right? Things that otherwise they may not have gone to do, if the games were not closed and stuff like that, right? So there's also that possibility in the end, but right? I think it would be better if, rather not better, but it would be better for me if there was collaboration. I would say it's for me, or probably for a couple of other people, but I care about me, because that's the only person I can more or less give information on. All other people I can theorize, hypothesize, but in the end, the only one that I can answer for or from is me, right? So I talk what I think would be convenient for me. And now we're facing the SINoALICE closing. I think that's about it. That's the story so far on the games that have been taken down while I was playing, or the ones that we have leave an end of service notice, right? So I'm definitely tempted to steer away from online games. Actually, we have when we first started playing games on Android, I'm quite certain we exclusively or almost exclusively played online games. And after seeing all these shutdowns, we started investigating about offline games exclusively. So we are rather unlikely to participate on any online game on mobile. Yet we still downloaded SINoALICE because we had it seen ever since Nexon made a post on their LinkedIn, and it drew our attention, and we wanted to see it. So that was the reason why we couldn't just not play SINoALICE. And Pokemon Unite, because, well, we found that the premise was super original, even though it's a MOBA, but with Pokemon, but we couldn't just not play as our favorite Pokemons in a MOBA. We still have it there, but we haven't played. Also, we have had what was the name of this game that's super famous? Oh wow. Wow, is this what they call old aging? We're losing our memory. Okay, what was the name of that game? Well, there's also Idle Heroes, but we still have that one installed, despite not having been able to play it or not. Yeah, mostly because we haven't had enough time to do so. But it's there too. We still play it. Nevertheless, we would be way more happy if we are able to have our own private server and not depend on whether or not it eventually gets closed. The Title Heroes, right? I cannot find the other one, but it's wait. We actually have files for it, but we have not been able to make the files run. But they're here. They're on the computer at the very least. It looks unlikely that we're going to make them run, as they are very... Well, no, it's not that unlikely, but the fact that, well, getting any of these private server stolen files, because none of these private server games are or seem to be that the company one day just has a change of heart and decide to release the files, and here you go, use them. It's your heart content. Except maybe that NCSoft, which apparently after many years decided to do the release, but I do remember there was like some situations there, so I'm not sure if it was also a bunch of stolen files that, seeing as how they eventually saw the light of day, then that's when they were started to be care about the community or something like that. Clash of Clans. Yes, Clash of Clans. We played Clash of Clans on mobile too, because that was not an end of service, was it? Dominations. We started playing Dominations, yes. And we stopped playing it, but not because it ended service, but rather I believe it was because we didn't have internet access steadily, so we couldn't keep up playing the game, and we liked the mechanics of building up a base, attacking, that kind of thing. So we thought, after a long time, we thought, we need to find an alternative for this. We could never find a single player game that had anything close to that game. But we did eventually find out about Clash of Clans. We weren't that excited about playing Clash of Clans in the first place, but seeing as it was the same mechanics, it still was interesting and attractive enough to be played. We played it, it was good. We felt that we wanted to do the private server thing, but all of those things take quite some energy and time, so we didn't go that route, or haven't gone that route still. Let's see, is there any other noticeable mention? These aren't games that were end of service, but rather games that in a way or another possibly have tilted our attention towards doing something to prevent ourselves from being left out dry by some of these companies, which, like I mentioned, I'm not sure if they're doing it because they're trying to push people into doing things they would otherwise not do, or if they're just plain evil, and sadly they are the ones with the horsepower and the ones that have made the game, so they have had to find the money and the talent and create everything from scratch, assets and the game itself, all the programming stuff, so it could make a little bit of sense that they want others to follow on the trail by doing that kind of thing, learning, programming and drawing and creating things, right? That makes a little bit of sense. That would make a little bit of sense and not make them just be plain greedy and evil, I guess. But is it Is it really so, or is it just a way of idealizing an otherwise inescrupulous company and activity? I don't know, but I think it's still a waste that all of this material gets just discarded. Though, as mentioned, we still don't know what actual reasons may be behind anything in life. So the closing of the games may just be the games themselves asking for it to happen, and thus all of the efforts to try to keep them alive actually go against the games themselves, which are the ones that you have a saying in whether or not they want to be kept alive, I guess. Well, anyways, I don't think I have anything else at this particular moment. Let me think. I believe those were all the games that we have played that have seen end of service. Or at the very least, those are all the ones that I can remember at this particular moment. We went through some investigation. I couldn't remember any, or at the very least half of the names of these games. I unfortunately cannot remember the name of the first game that I mentioned, and I couldn't even find information on it afterwards. Maybe because that game closed and we couldn't remember the name was a fact, or made the fact that we started remembering the names of the games that were closing down after that one. Like I said, or like the article on Vice said, these kinds of actions create reactions, like a domino effect. I wouldn't call it a domino effect. It sounds like things may escalate and sometimes they don't, but at the very least they kind of make for people to move and do some stuff, right? Even if this is futile or if it accomplishes nothing, some people end up doing stuff. And some of these emulator solutions or private servers get developed by people that start by not even knowing anything about programming and stuff, right? Although they may have some inclination to it, or some excitement, or some motivation prior or beforehand, but they seem at times that they didn't have anything and started doing it because of how much they wanted to continue playing these games that have been closed and stuff. So if you look at it from that perspective, yeah, okay, it's kind of a, I don't know if noble, but at the very least somewhat necessary activity out of the end of service thingy doing. But is it really? I don't think so. Many of these projects still fail to actually surface. And what are these companies then waiting or expecting for in order to actually do something? You know, it's okay. It kind of makes sense, but at the same time, imagine if you had to reinvent the wheel every single time. You know, these developers probably don't see any benefit on people playing games themselves. They don't see the artistic value of a player playing the game. I don't see the artistic value on players playing games. I see the artistic value on me playing games. And I have seen it on perhaps another, maybe two, maybe three people, but I think just two, and that's a stretch of the imagination. I have only seen probably another person who was very interested in creating movies. So I believe that person was a very big source of inspiration into what I do nowadays, right? To use these technologies to create movies. I don't think he never exactly connected the two of them, but I believe he did it without saying it, right? So he mentioned a lot of times how he liked movies and cinema, and he was very keen on documentaries. So he really enjoyed that aspect very much, and he liked playing video games, or he played video games, and I felt that he expressed a message that was worth being expressed whilst playing the video games. So I would say that was one of my biggest source of inspirations on the activities that nowadays I try to do, right? So yeah, unfortunately, as mentioned, we have been unable for the most part to find any other person that has done a similar thing. Moreover, well, not moreover, but at the very least, moreover to try to, or even less to try to elaborate further on that particular philosophy, which is what I believe have, or I at least, or yeah, we even on the channel, like the whole, what's the word? The whole community here has been probably trying to continue, I guess, right? So we have tried to further improve on the content that we felt were inspired by this person, but who knows if we're ever going to find someone with a similar state of mind, or rather even another person that has gone through that particular, what's the word, train of thought, right? But anyways, I don't even know why I was mentioning any of this to begin with. Why was I mentioning this? I don't know. But yeah, moving on, I guess. These games that... Oh, yes, yeah, I remember. It is about the what was it again? The value, sort of like the value, the artistic value behind these games, right? The artistic value behind playing the game. Alright, so not many see them as a way to portray a sort of artistic, an artistic activity or value, right? Which makes a lot of sense, because the way, at least in my opinion, the way people play is far from looking artistic, looking like a movie, or expressing a message, an interesting or worthwhile message. I don't know, it's just most of the time, if not now, it's all of the time, just a race to see who is the most powerful, which, like I mentioned, is not unlike the way we used to play as well. But I believe this was one of the first moments that we stopped playing that way, or thought, oh, there may be another way to play, and started actually exercising on that way. So we feel like we have tried to build on that, train of thought on our nose as to whether or not we have managed to do it, but always striving through or towards that, right? Anyway, so what I was mentioning is that these developers, these video game developers, are more likely than not even that interested or caring or care as much about people just doing videos with their games, right? So it's mostly logical that they couldn't care, or they couldn't care less about closing the game, about the community that gets left behind from closing the game. They could potentially care about members of those communities that start developing artistic abilities in the drawing sector, or programming abilities in the computing sector, stuff like that, that they could potentially use to make other games. And seeing as how they were in a way inspired by these games, then chances are they would eventually try to be in that community, the community that gave them the game, that inspired them to do that activity, right? The one that they managed to improve and perfect throughout the years. So that's what makes me feel that they don't care about releasing private servers so that members of the community are able to play the game, because, like I mentioned, members of the community playing the game gives them absolutely close to nothing. Members of the community playing the game and doing social media content, or at the very least creating a carbon footprint on the worldwide web ecosystem, could be slightly interesting for them, but definitely closer to the lower end of the spectrum there, together with those that are not doing even that, free advertisement for the game that they have been playing. Therefore, just basically at the end of that chain of importance for them. Therefore, why would they even release the private server for any game at all? Hence why I'm mentioning that none of the companies, if any, well, as far as I know, no, I wouldn't say none, but close to none of the companies are the ones that actually release private server files. Or maybe they do, but the story usually goes that a person within the company is the one that actually steals the files, or something around those lines. That also may be just a bunch of smoke and mirrors there to create a story that sounds intriguing and stuff like that, right? It may just be that, but in the end, there is still the chance that the actual way these files end up reaching the public eye, reaching the public, is because of, I think it's more likely than it is that, you know, people just stealing the files in one way or another and then reselling them like mercenaries, rather than being a whole conspiracy theory on trying to get some what's the word, some free publicity, or what's the word that we use a lot, that which they like a lot to have, what's the name of the word again? It should come back eventually, but you know, that word, when you have like a Discord kind of thing, or not Discord, but when you have like polemics, it wasn't polemics, but it was something around those lines. Controversy, yes, controversy, yeah, that's the word. So basically, it's probably just mostly that, or rather, I doubt that it is that. I think it is more likely that there actually is an employee, a disgruntled employee that took the files and now wants to resell them out of spite or out of mercenarism. Then I think that's more likely than the other scenario, which is, or could potentially be, the actual company just trying to create a controversial scenario for publicity or whatnot. Although in the end, who knows? It could be either or, it could be neither of. But the files sometimes do make it to the public, and I'm uncertain as to how. And that's not even important. The fact is that it is very rarely, if ever, that a company just says, oh, by the way, we are releasing the game now for you to play on your own. Here is. And promote and advertise them themselves. That I don't think I've ever seen. Maybe with like a really small game from a really one-person developer. I think I remember seeing that with Dreams, and that's about it. There may be a few, but I'm not aware of them, and if there's even more than a few, I would be thoroughly surprised. So yeah, the whole point with all of this is that I doubt companies do care about releasing the games after they shut them down for their loyal followers and loyal audiences to be able to continue enjoying them in the future, which is, in my opinion, rather sad. But like I mentioned, what exactly is provided for them by any of this? And it seems that not doing so may in fact provide more for them. So I guess you don't have to be a genius to assume that the solution or the what they are going to go for is going to be that other one, I guess, right? Alright, so I think what is this? I'm testing. Okay, so now I'm reading MMO ration posts in search for whatever, but I doubt we're going to find anything. So it's just reading at the end. Anyways, I think that's about it. I don't think we have anything else to talk about right now. I think we overextended on this conversation. We just wanted to include at the end of the stream a list of other games that we have seen that we have suffered an end of notice reality, but in the end, only to have it there like backed up, because if we had it on a just chatting session, it was going to be lost again. but we started extending ourselves furthermore for who knows what reasons. Yet it is there, and we have it here, and this is it. So once again, thank you very much for following along with us this wonderful journey that, even if now has ended, has, just like this long list of other games that we have mentioned, have managed to provide us with a lot of good times, entertaining times, wonderful memories, and remarkable moments. Remember, you have been watching us at TALEX9, first stream live on Twitch.tv. I would advise for you to follow us if you have liked some of the content that we have seen, because as mentioned, we try to follow a similar philosophy for other video games that we play, hopefully in order to create something different, first and foremost, something that you can enjoy as an audience. But well, let's see if one day that happens. The audience enjoying it, not us making the stuff. Hopefully we can get to improve it, but if with what we have right now are unable to call upon big audiences, or rather even audiences, or well, we have members in our community, so I can't say we are completely by ourselves, right? But if we are still unable to increase our market, then it sounds quite unlikely that we are going to, with some or other improvement, because the philosophy is still there, and if you see it and you are drawn to it, then you're probably already following along, right? But we do this because we also know that it is somewhat atemporal, so even though there may not be some people that may not be right now, or some members of the community that may not be right now, could potentially be in the future. So that also drives us to further continue seeing it as a temporary service. And mostly just that as well. We'd like to give back to the community, even though sometimes it may be felt as what we are doing is rather useless, or mostly at the very least. But yeah, some of the other members, content creators, sometimes I feel kind of give out some sort of education, and it is sometimes done not even explicitly, but rather through other mechanisms, sometimes even by counter example or stuff like that. So I guess it's valid, and it's in its own way, its own thing, which I feel shouldn't be discarded or put aside in a kind of way, right? Nevertheless, we are a little more brash or blunt, so we are not into the hints or discover it yourself kind of deal, which at times makes me wonder if we are fit for this, because maybe that's exactly the way that should be or has to be done. And since we are mostly like trying to say, oh yes, look at this is the way we're doing it, this is the way that it should be done, maybe we are just totally failing and miserable at doing so, and thus could be the reason why our community just can increase its size or something. I don't know. Anyways, I will advise that in or any other case that you actually have been enjoying the content, that you follow our channel, because We stream rather different games each and every time, and so finding our channel could potentially be very difficult in this huge ecosystem that is not just Twitch, but the whole streamer community itself. If you follow us, you will be able to receive notifications on your homepage, or rather notification on your email inbox if you have it enabled, and you will be able to see when we are live streaming on your homepage, on your Twitch homepage. Also, be sure to check out the banners down below, where you will be able to find links for our YouTube channel, our Facebook channel, our Stream Tips channel, and our Discord channel. Although the Discord is not on the banners at this particular moment, but it should eventually be found there. Otherwise, you can write on chat one of the commands, and that will take you to the actual Discord link. As well, we would like to remember that the handler TALEX9 is used by us on many, but not all, different websites, not even the ones that we are right now advertising here. So you will be able to see us on YouTube on TALEX009 with a license to stream and maybe even to kill. Why I keep saying that joke is because the actual reason why I went around choosing the number 9 in the first place, when I first opened up my email way back then in high school, it's because I remember being inspired and motivated by a friend there, a colleague on the classroom, and I believe I don't recall his exact email, but I think it was with a 007 or 008, and that was the day. Those were the days when James Bond, the James Bond movie GoldenEye, was in theaters and very famous. So everybody, or at least I know, I wanted to be like a secret agent kind of thing, right? So when I opened up my email, I remember, I think I did try TALEX007, and it seems it was taken, or I tried a couple of combinations, and then I think my friend had number 8 because of the same reason or something, I don't know. I remember I was a very big fan of Alex Trevelyan, which was 006, and it was James Bond 007. I think my friend had 008 or just 8, and we decided that we wanted to be 009. Weirdly enough, we ended up going with just number 9. I don't know why we didn't take the 00, but I could almost bet money on my memory in this particular subject. I couldn't say I remember it vividly. Who even knows if these memories are fake altogether? But as far as I can recall, I decided to select the number 9 because of that. But of course, as I have mentioned before, never be deceived or never take into stone graving or as the only explanation, because even though we chose 9 at that particular moment, who even knows why there is a number 9 there on the handler? It could have been something that was even done by itself prior to our intervention, and we just think it was the reason why we chose it. Also the reason why we never pronounced the name of our channel, and we instead spell it out as TALEX9. Because if we pronounce it, we feel we are kind of stating a specific way rather than making it more open to interpretation. So, from my opinion, any pronunciation is in its own way right. It may not have been the pronunciation that we initially intended for, but that doesn't make it wrong. Actually, what we feel could be the original intention. Well, the original intention remains, at the very least for me, because as an executioner, or as far as I can at the very least think or assume, but that doesn't necessarily mean it is the reason for the creation of the name itself or anything at all, right? One could have its own idea behind it, and the product itself could potentially have had its own idea behind it, I guess. So that's why we like to encourage further ways to see our own product with your own perspective. So you can just assume it is TALEX9 or 9C, wait, 9CELAT, or any of the mixings that come from it. And we managed to explore a lot of those when we started creating our multiple Mabinogi accounts, because we started permutating that, turning it into what's the word for those word puzzles that an acronym? No, it's not an acronym, but the word sounds a little bit like it. Yeah, it's one of those puzzles that you shuffle the letters and it turns into something else or something like that. I don't recall what that word is called, but I know that a word exists. And thus, therefore, we like to increase and improve your creativity on the subject, and that you are able to see things that we may not see, but at the same time that may be there and even more accurate or realistic even than the ones that we believe in. So yeah, you will be able to find us on TALEX9 on many of the handlers, but on YouTube specifically it was taken, so we had to go back after many years, because we opened our email account way before we opened our YouTube account. We actually opened our YouTube account even after our Facebook account. Otherwise, we probably would have been able to find TALEX9 as a handler, but instead we had to go back in full circle there, and seeing as how TALEX9 was already taken, we thought that adding the double O was a good way to get a handler, and also a way to homage that very same idea which we had when originally incepted the concept of our email address and that ended up becoming our handler as it stands at this particular moment. So remember, TALEX9, you're watching us on. Well, without any further ado, I would like to once again thank you very much for joining in and watching this video, and all of our community members for always participating, and well, for your comments as on point or insane, or what would you call it, puzzling, or sometimes it's straight to the point, or wait, there's another word, another word that sounds like puzzling, or that cryptic, that's the word, or as cryptic as your postings, and as well as created content, co-created content, helping us co-create the content on the channel. So cooperative content is and has been. So once again, thank you very much to all of our community members. Thank you very much to all of our viewers too for viewing the channel, because It's in the end not just about always creating, it's also about having someone enjoy the stuff, which I believe some of these companies, if they're only thinking about training the future trainees that could potentially end up creating more, well, but sometimes what's the point of always be on the creating mode? Creating more mode. Well, yeah, I kind of have an answer for that. I believe it is, if you're not creating, then you're not getting paid, and if you're not getting paid, you're probably starving then. That's the saddest realization of the situation, that it may just end up boiling down to that without any way to circumvent or escape. But unfortunately, or fortunately, the older content still, in my opinion at least, deserves a place, deserves to be treated well and to be honored and to be revisited beyond just watching a couple of videos. So in my opinion, this should be also included as a possibility. It shouldn't be, well, we only have videos to reminiscence of the past. No, you should be able to still be able, you should be allowed to still be able to play some of these games. But, well, what do I know? I have not gone through the hardships of creating such arduous content, such difficult content, and even when we try to discuss the fact of putting up some things that are already there, it becomes so difficult, daunting, and tasking. And that includes getting a whole SINoALICE from scratch, which is not exactly a scratch because there's a lot of assets that can be obtained. And if you pair it up with something like RPG Maker, chances are that from scratch is really like closer to being done than not. But even something that sounds simple, that's not the simplest thing, but it's simple still in comparison. Or even simpler solutions, which sometimes just include changing some numbers on an already existing and probably running MMO that we have available, still feels quite daunting and quite tasking. So when we see those things and we find them so difficult to do, then what moral do we have to tell other creators that have taken such sacrifices and amount of time and, well, all of that required to bring into fruition any of these contents? How can we even tell them that they should be releasing it for public when we're even unable to do even portions or very much smaller approaches to this to these things? Yeah, anyways, maybe it's not just for me, right? That's what I keep trying to say, but I'm trying to take the what I find is the easiest way or the most enjoyable way, which I don't think is all that bad. Maybe that's exactly the point. If we get to focus on doing the things that we enjoy the most and the things that we find easier, maybe life could improve. But maybe that's just a very stoner way of seeing the world, and that's why sometimes these substances are illegal in places, because they most times or sometimes just promote laziness, or that's how they are being portrayed at, I feel, at times. Oh yeah, just an opinion there. But anyways, yes, we definitely would like to improve or rather be able to do some of those activities, but we find ourselves either not that, I wouldn't say motivated, but we feel like we would not be able to deliver on the subject, right? We feel unfit for the task. We keep thinking we can do some of this that we're doing, try to do like videos and content and try to make a movie-like experience and stuff. So we feel even though we may not be doing it right, we may not even be able to do as well as we're thinking we are. This is at the very least what we are trying to do better or something like that, or to improve, in order to try to put our contribution on the ecosystem. But who knows, maybe at one point we're also going to be surrendering with this, throwing the towel or something, right? Oh, I wouldn't even say that what we're doing is the labor that we plan to, or the labor that we are hoping to continue doing. Because who knows, maybe tomorrow we'll already be like, oh, you know what, I'm never going to stream again, and that was the end of it. But at the very least, some of the videos remain on the website, being backed up as videos on demand, and hopefully that gets to give a return to some of the parties involved, right? Some of the stakeholders, because we feel, as we have obtained from many, we would like to give back as well, as much or as little as we can, or at the very least a little, not as little, or at the very least a little. But who even knows if we're ever going to be able, or if we're going to do it. Thus, that's why we motivate you to go into the Twitch channel, over to the section, towards the section that says videos, and from there to click on highlights, because that's where we have been backing up our streams, trying to preserve the content that we have tried to create and deliver, right? The idea and the philosophies behind it. Also, we try to make a statement with the art picture that we choose there, the thumbnail that we choose for each video. They often try to either convey a message, or entice the senses, or just give out a sense of composition. So we would appreciate a lot if you were able to, if not see the whole videos that we have backed up on the platform, at the very least get to see those thumbnails, with obviously the highest hope that you enjoy that which is done there, that which we have tried to do there, unbeknownst, as we have mentioned, as to whether or not any of this could actually provide or prove useful for anybody. But still, we will try until the very end, which not necessarily may be ourselves dying, but rather just ourselves getting tired enough to continue to go on. But until that moment, we shall continue, and we hope that you continue to be with us on our community, and may you still continue to share and enjoy with us. Without further ado, I bid you farewell, and I hope that I see you on a future stream. Once again, thank you very much to all of our participants, and that includes as the main and most important member of today's stream, SINoALICE itself. Thank you once again for all the wonderful moments, and may you enjoy your rest then. Have a very wonderful evening. I will be talking to you at a later date. Once again, thank you very much. Bye now.